How's it going, everybody? Brian Alvarez and Dave Meltzer here, Wrestling Observer Radio, June 10, 2024, figure4online.com/wrestlingobserver.com. We got a lot of news to get into here today, and that includes NXT pay-per-view, SmackDown, Collision, Dominion, and Dave, we're going to start off today with what's going on with Ricochet.
Well, as everyone knows, his contract is running out, and on Friday, they got the WWE Speed title off of him. They had Andrade beat him. They had Andrade win in the finals of the latest tournament that they were doing, beating Tommaso Ciampa. So normally, you would probably save the title match for the next week rather than do it the same night, which tells you how quick that they wanted to get the thing off of the title off of him. He's leaving, most likely. It's not like official. This morning, he was up in the air on this. He was basically up in the air. Had not signed the contract. WWE had been, kind of, I guess, with the idea he was leaving. They did have ideas for him in case he stayed. They may write him out on TV this week. But I was told this afternoon that he did, in fact, make a decision. But what his decision is, that I don't know. But I think most people have him leaving. I think that's the safest bet of the two. I can't say that 100%. But in the words that I said to Garrett the other day on these subjects, he is going where he expects to be the happiest. So that would be where he expects to be the happiest. That's where he's headed.
Interesting. Well, Ospreay wants him.
A lot of people want him there.
Yeah. I mean, he'd flat out said a couple of, it was like a month ago, actually.
Was it? I thought it was only a couple of days ago. Like a week ago, maybe.
Yeah, it was fairly recently.
Yeah, of course he wants him there. He's one of his favorite opponents. They had incredible matches years ago. It really was a lot of years ago because he's been in WWE since like 2018, like 6 years. I mean, he left the independent scene at the end of 2017, and I remember, I saw him at PWG, and it was funny because, that was the one where, a lot of people are going like, oh, he shouldn't go. And I said, he's the one that they won't screw up. And it was really interesting. He did really well in NXT for the first year. And then on the main roster, he was like a lot of guys. He had to stops and starts. I know that when Paul Heyman was given the book, whatever that means, to get overruled every week. But when he was put in charge of Raw, one of his things was, Ricochet is one of the top baby faces as a way to attract teenagers because he thought that he could get him to, with the acrobatics and everything, that it would be really good act for teenagers. And I think that went about, just like a lot of the guys there, like Cedric Alexander. There was like, you could, if you ever watched that period, it's like a guy would come in for about 3 weeks, then Vince would just basically say, nah, and that was it. And then he had to retry. Malachi Black was on that list. Buddy Matthews. Not so much Buddy Matthews as a top guy, but as a guy, Ricochet, Cedric Alexander, and Vince did not approve of them, and that's what happened. Vince is gone and everything, but right now, I could see a situation where, on TV tomorrow, where they. I don't know. Braun Breaker could finish him. They might just have finished him up on Friday night. I don't know. Or maybe he's going to stay. But I would say, I expect him to go. The next thing is if you expect him to go, where do you expect him? You got to figure it's AEW. It's an interesting one because it's a new person. AEW's got so many people, but it's a guy who can have a really good. Stylistically, he's a better fit in AEW. Whether AEW can do anything with him, and I'm sure they'll do something with him, but exactly long term when there's just so many guys on the roster and everything like that. It remains to be seen. But in WWE, I think he pretty much had a ceiling, and so it just comes from his perspective. You know what you're going to get with WWE. The one that surprised me, and this is actually the reason why I was very surprised when I heard that there was a good chance he was going to go, was his fiancée, Samantha Irvin. And like, when be more happy doesn't necessarily mean, getting to do better matches. He will get a chance to do better matches in AEW. There's no doubt about that. But there's more to life than just getting to do better matches. Especially when you got a relationship and, if you're working together, traveling together, everything like that, it's a lot easier than working in two different companies, especially when you're a wrestler and there's so much travel, or in her case, a ring announcer for wrestling, when there's a lot of travel involved in different dates and things like that. Like if she's working Monday, if you're both working Monday and some house shows, it's one thing, but when it's the idea that, you may be working Wednesday and Saturday, and then she may be working, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, it's not the end of the world. People have made it work, but it's a lot easier, when you're working together. That's one of the things with a lot of couples, like with Andrade. Andrade probably was going to have a better, be pushed better and probably make the same money, if not more, in AEW. But, when Charlotte Flair heals up and goes back on the road, they'd have a big schedule problem. And when they're when they're both on the SmackDown roster, that they don't have that. They can train together, they can travel together. It's a lot easier. So, that's why it surprised me. But I guess, I guess we'll see. Well, we'll know in the next couple of weeks. But a lot of people have it like it's a done deal, and I know that, like I said, he made the decision today, whatever that decision is, and the WWE will act accordingly, and then I guess people will be waiting for him in AEW if he's not coming back, or if he starts a new feud or something like that, then we'll know also.
All right, tell us about the passing of Larry Santo.
Yeah, Larry Santo was a guy who wrestled in. He was a TV enhancement guy that wrestled in a lot of territories in the Southeast. He was on TBS, for probably 15-year period. Probably like 1984 to all through that WCW Saturday Night period with the syndicated shows. He was job guy, and he used the name Larry Santo and also Larry Santana at different times, and also Alabama and Mid-South. When they needed a guy, he was there. He was a reliable, good wrestler who did his job well. Was well liked, and 63 years old, and I don't know much else. He passed away last Sunday, and I saw some comments from his daughter and from Bob Cook, who you may remember was another of the really good working job guy, who said that he would really miss him. And he trained David Young, who was a TNA original wrestler from when the company first started. And, I remember good bumps and everything, always solid in the ring.
All right, we had an NXT show, the first one from the UFC Apex. Probably won't be the last one. Although, I don't know, man. If you're going to do, 400 to 700 people, you may as well do it where they've been doing their TV, because you got a loyal audience and they know everybody and they love everybody. This crowd, it was different from an NXT crowd. There were stretches during the matches where they just kind of sat there and seemed like a fair number of people there didn't necessarily know who everybody was. They had a lot of comps out. So I thought the wrestling was... It's
not comps in the sense of when you're doing a big show, and you're in, it doesn't, Las Vegas, of course, but if you're to go anywhere when you're doing a big show, you're going to have media partners who are going to want to go. The comps, it's 400 people. Most of these shows, the comps are going to be in the thousands, or probably 1,500-ish, probably for like a regular show, and maybe in the thousands for a WrestleMania or SummerSlam or whatever. It's not like they comped the building, but they didn't sell it out. They had 300 tickets for sale, and as of the morning, I was told, it was like about 250. And when you looked on TV, there were a lot of empty seats in a small building. And it's not because they couldn't sell tickets, but the ticket prices start at $250. So, and this, it's an NXT show, and there wasn't a great demand for tickets at $250 and up. So that's one of the things, all those empty chairs, especially because you can control the number of chairs you put in that building. It wasn't like it's empty seats in the bleachers. I mean, they just should have put less chairs out there so you don't see right on camera. This is what is really interesting, because from like a WWE, their production's always so spectacular. And in this one, I mean, there were things that I saw, besides, the empty chairs right in front of the hard camera. Then when they would shoot behind, there were a lot of empty chairs. And usually when they're in an arena, and AEW as well, both, when you have a lot of empty chairs, you put them, behind the ring, the side that you shoot, so you never see them. And in this case, they shot them frequently. And then also, they had a guy in the headset who was like trying to get the crowd to cheerlead, like literally a cheerleader out there when the crowd was dead, and you can see him, and they have that's not unusual, but when this was like right on camera, and I'm going like, this is like sloppy watching the cheerleader guy trying to get the audience going when the crowd's not that hot. So there's like a lot of things that's very unusual for a WWE show. In that building, and I mean, I'm sure that they have reasons, and some of it's probably just cross promotion. Promote UFC, you get UFC fighters on the show, do that, Shayna Baszler and Lola Vice UFC style match and everything. So it's you get the cross promotion, and you own the building basically. So as far as it's cheaper, much cheaper to run, and it's an easy, the setup is easy because UFC films stuff from there constantly. There's a lot of UFC, and maybe some of that was also because it was UFC people filming, and not, it was WWE and UFC people both working together filming, because the UFC people are familiar with how to film that thing, but filming for UFC and filming for WWE is very different, especially at the Apex, where from that standpoint, UFC doesn't really care if there's empty seats. You know what I mean? They're like, that's a pro wrestling thing. Other sports, TV shows, you want the look and everything like that, but UFC, when they do a show at the Apex, they may have 150 people there, set up for 150. This was set up for 700. So, or just under, I think like 650 actually, but, so it was just different in that sense. And all, I think that's the basic thing. Yeah.
Well, I think there were a lot of UFC folks there, and I think some of them might have left after the underground match because, it didn't look bad. Like the very first shot they had when the show started, it looked good, but I really noticed during the main event. In the main event, you could see empty chairs all over the place. The place was a lot more quiet. It seemed like people had left at some point during the show that had got there for the beginning of the show.
Well, I saw a lot of empties in the first match, because when I was watching the first match, I remember thinking, well, it's Vegas, it's a late arriving crowd, but then those seats never ended up being full. There's only a couple in view. There were like, maybe 10 in view, but from behind there were actually a lot when they would shoot that thing, and that was throughout the entire show. So there very well may have been people who left, but there were, again, there's 50 empty seats. It's just in a building, when you're set up for 600, 50 empty seats looks a lot worse than in a building, if you have a 7,000-seat building and all the empty seats are up and you can shoot away from it. So it's no biggie. I was just surprised if no one's there, get rid of the chairs, because they were chairs. It's not like it was a permanent setup.
So the opening match was Lash Legend, Kalani Jordan, Michin, Sol Ruka, Jada Parker, and Fallon Henley for the new NXT Women's North American title in a ladder match. And the best way I can describe this match is it felt like a bunch of great athletes recreating a ladder match as opposed to a great pro wrestling ladder match. It was very, very heavily choreographed. It was like, and a lot of them are new.
They're all choreographed. The thing is, it was very sloppy in the sense of most of these women probably had never been in a ladder match, and they were doing ladder spots. But it would be like, when you do the ladder spot where someone's on the top and you push the thing over. It's like you go with the push. You push over and you kind of hang on, and then you do whatever you do. You take the bump, however you take the bump. This would be people on top, and they would jump off, and then you'd see the ladder get pushed. You know what I mean? They were jumping off early, or the timing was all messed up on some things like that. It was sloppy. There was also some really nice athletic stuff there. To be fair, for a match that technically was not good, the crowd was very into it. So they were just into. I think they were into the idea of a ladder match. They were into they did like 3 or 4 really cool things, and they kept the match, relatively short. It's much shorter than like if on the main promotion or even on television, if you did a ladder match, it would be probably 20 minutes or in the 18-minute plus mark. And this one was kept a lot shorter for all good reasons, and I think that like I said, I don't think it was a great match, but I do think that it was successful in the building and probably okay to watch, on TV if you're, just if you go with the idea that, hey, this is wrestlers of a certain experience level and they're trying to do a ladder match, they probably pulled it off pretty well. If you go with the idea of comparing this to a ladder match that you would see in AEW or WWE on the main roster, it was green people.
Yeah, the thing with green people is they go too fast, and they had this choreographed, but it was like do a spot, do a spot, do a spot, do a spot. There was no moment between the spot to let it sink in, and so at the beginning it's just like they're just doing 5,000 things. I can't even keep track of what's going on, and the crowd was into it. They had NXT chants, and at the end, Soul ends up hitting a Soul Snatcher on Jaden Fallon. And then her and Kalani try to race to the top, and they kick each other off the ladder. And then Michin gets up on the ladder, but Kalani ends up throwing her off. She puts her on a ladder, does a split-legged moonsault, and then Kalani Jordan climbs up, grabs the belts, and wins. So Kalani Jordan is the first ever NXT North American champion. And yes, for what it was, they did fine. Was it like a great ladder match? No. But they did some good athletic stuff.
Yeah, I was surprised. I don't think Kalani Jordan would have been the favorite to win, but I guess it doesn't really matter. But I just, I would say that one was a surprise when the finish came. I don't think the crowd was peaked for the finish, because partially because I just don't think that they really expected Kalani Jordan to win. So when she's up there at the end, about to hook the thing, you're thinking, like, who's knocking her off? Because there's no way she's winning. So, I guess as a surprise ending, it was okay. But, yeah, they were, like you said, they were doing ladder spots, but they were not experienced at doing them, and it showed.
We had Nathan Frazier and Axiom versus Good Brothers for the NXT Tag Team titles. An excellent match. And Good Brothers are just a great tag team. And so they, Nathan Frazier and Axiom, they do everything at 1,000 miles an hour, all sorts of cool spots. They're great as well, but as far as like a veteran, excellent tag team, the Good Brothers they paced this thing great. They, allowed them to do their fast stuff when it was time, and when it wasn't, they slowed them down. And finally there at the end, Anderson hit a middle rope TKO for a near fall. Frazier hit a tope on the gallows outside, and then Axiom hit Carl with a top rope Spanish fly. Frazier hit the Phoenix Splash, got the pin. I thought this was an excellent tag team match.
That was really good. I was surprised. I thought Gallows and Anderson would probably win. The other thing, too, is and this was actually there were 2 matches that had the same story going in, and in both cases, they didn't tell the story at all. This one was those guys were beat up. Remember on TV they were beat up, and we're going to still go. Like, can you even wrestle on Sunday? And it's like we're going to go. And then in the match, it was like nobody taped up, nobody doing.
Actually, that's not true. Axiom had his shoulder all taped up, and they did work it over.
Yeah, but not that much. It wasn't really made out. And then in the Ethan Page match, they did the angle where Aurora Mensa attacked him. In Las Vegas and everything. And then, basically, that was also just a regular match.
We had Lola Vice, Shayna Baszler, NXT Underground. And,
this is really good.
For the style of match they did, they worked their asses off. And the last
really
few minutes of this match...
They worked a really hard pace, and that's a hard match to do at a fast pace.
They were, last couple of minutes of this match, Shayna's got her hands on her knees... And Lola's outside gasping for air. They worked a hard, fast style. And it was, 10, 12 minutes probably? I didn't time it, but, they put a lot of time in. And they worked in the ring. They brawled outside. They did MMA style, mostly, Lola a lot of kicks, Shayna did a lot of the groundwork. And
yes, it was 10 minutes.
So they had a clever finish.
But as far as they worked a really hard pace. I mean, both of them, 10-minute match, but this is way harder than a 10-minute pro wrestling match.
So they end up outside, and Shayna starts beating up all these security dudes. And she beats up this guy, she beats up that guy, she beats up this guy. And then they get back to working, and you're supposed to forget that she beat these guys up. So they're outside, and they're brawling, and then finally, Shayna is just, backing up after they're brawling outside, and she trips on one of the guys she beat up. She bonks her head on the steps and sells it like she's out. And Lola throws her in the ring, lays in the ground and pound, and the referee stops it. And then Shayna does a deal where she doesn't know the ref stopped it, so she tries to double leg the...
There was a spinning back fist before the ground and pound.
So Shayna doesn't understand it's been stopped, and so she tries to double leg the referee, and they're pulling her off and everything, and she's complaining about the finish. And it's very clever. They wanted a way to beat Shayna. And, at the end of the day, she has her out. It was her own fault. She tripped over someone that she beat up and accidentally hit her head. But they worked very hard, and I thought they did a hell of a job in this match.
Yeah, I thought they did real well. This was, I thought this was a really good match.
We had Sexy Red. She was the host of the show. She did virtually nothing. She just twerked all night. She celebrated with Kalani Jordan. Then we had Obafemi, Joe Coffey, and Wes Lee for the North American title, and I thought they did a very, very good job. They worked around Obafemi great. They gave him spots to make him look like a monster. They got him out of the ring when they wanted to do stuff with just Joe Coffey and Wes Lee. When all three were in there together, they sold great for the guy. He actually did the spot where you do the doubles. He gets one guy on each side and does a vertical suplex. And we've seen people do it before, but he did a delayed double vertical suplex, which was extremely impressive. And then finally they...
Well, he's legitimate. He was, ranked nationally in the shot put. So he's, legitimately, physically, exceedingly strong. He's not just a big guy, but he's a very physically strong guy. A world-class or national class, I guess, shot putter. That's pretty high on the strength list. And again, it's not like weightlifting strong, although I'm sure he's weightlifting strong, but when you're someone who's a really strong shot putter, that's real body strength, if you know what I mean. There's a difference between being able to, bench press a lot and then be able to use the weight in a physical nature. So, you get a shot putter or something like that. They're really, really strong athletes.
So then Gallus hits the ring because it's a three-way, so it's not an EQ, and so they start beating up Oba. And then Oba ends up coming back to life, and the fans chant, "You fucked up," and he destroys both of Gallus. And then Wes makes a comeback into the ring. He hits the cardiac kick, but Gallus pulls the referee out of the ring, so Wes beats them up. And then Oba finally returns. He hits the pop-up powerbomb on both of them. And, of course, he pins Joe Coffey and retained the title. Thought the guys did a very good job here.
Mm-hmm. I think, and it also leaves Wes Lee for another match.
Yes. We had Roxanne Perez, Jordan Grace, NXT women's title, and another very good match. And story here is it was a split crowd. We had TNA chants, we had NXT chants, we had people chanting for both of them. And Roxanne ends up hitting a tope into a DDT outside, hits a lion salt, puts on the crossface, and Jordan manages to escape. And so right as she slams Roxanne out of a Pop Rocks attempt, out comes Tatum Paxley. And it sounded like the crowd had no idea who she was. And she jumps over the rail, and she starts fawning over the title belt. And then
TNA belt.
Was it the TNA belt?
It absolutely was. Yeah. Because my impression is because Jordan Grace on their next pay-per-view is going to wrestle somebody from NXT, it appears. And
so it's Tatum Paxley?
Tatum Paxley was teased on TV, and then she comes out, and she's looking at the belt, but she goes, that was the big thing, she goes for the TNA belt, not the NXT belt. So I don't know that it's her, but it certainly teases that she would be the one, and they teased that on TV this week as well. So, yeah, that looks like it could be. I don't know what, as far as like Tatum Paxley. I mean, it's going to be. I think it's a mystery opponent anyway, but I don't know how like Tatum Paxley is going to be like this big surprise star, but. And at least that's the tease that this is what it's going to be.
So she grabs a belt, and then Dana Brooke comes out, which she comes out and
called her Ash by Elegance.
Well, first
TNA name.
No, Vic goes Dana Brooke. TNA wrestler Ash by Elegance. He forgot her name as well. So she grabs the belt, and they have a tug of war, and then Jordan comes out, and she hits both of them with the belt. And then she gets back in the ring. She goes for a Juggernaut driver, but Roxanne counters into a cutter. Hits the Pop Rocks, gets the pin. Yeah, this doesn't seem like a fair trade. Roxanne pins Jordan Grace, and then Jordan gets a win over Tatum Paxley.
Well, here's the deal. It's like, if when you do an outsider thing, if you're planning on doing it for any length of time, the first time the outsider has to win. And so that tells me that they are not planning it for any length of time. Because if they did, they would do it differently. The other thing too is and I guess did Bayley get sick or something?
Did she get sick?
Yeah, because Bayley was Bayley was going to be at ringside watching this match. So when I heard Bayley at ringside watching this match, I figured that it's like, they'll go to Bayley and Jordan Grace. But I guess the plan could have been Bayley and Roxanne Perez. I mean, that easily could have been the idea. But I don't know what the story was. They were advertising Bayley. Bayley had gone on Twitter, I think, and said she was going to be there. And then I heard, that there's, she got sick, or there's some reason that at the last minute it didn't happen. I didn't see Bayley there, so.
We had a Sexy Red promo. She announced that she is running for president and also going on tour.
Yeah.
Wesley was being interviewed, and he was attacked by Gallus. They laid him out. They showed a tweet from Cody basically saying he was heading to NXT this week to likely do something with Ethan Page.
Yeah, so the deal there is, it's like this is a week that, NXT's getting close to AEW, and AEW's got the NBA Finals, and NXT does not. So NXT's got an interesting, advantageous position, and, they've come close, and so maybe that'll be, normal week. Could they have come even closer? Could they have even won? Maybe. With Cody there, helps the odds of that happening greatly. So there you go.
So then we had the main event, which was Trick Williams, Ethan Page for the NXT title, and it was fine. I can't say it was like fine. A great match or anything like that, but it was a solid, basic wrestling match.
It was a basic professional wrestling match. It was not a pay-per-view main event match. It was basically it was like a normal television match. That's what I would call it. Trick needs a great opponent to have that caliber of a match. Ethan Page is a very good wrestler, but it was fine. It was fine, but it never really got, and also wasn't that long. It was a lot shorter than the usual main event that they would do on a show like this, because usually those would be like 20, and this was 12. So it felt, they just kind of went for a while. Ethan Page pretty well carried it, looked fine doing it, and then they just went right to the finish. Trick does the high knee when there was a distraction and gets the pin, and it was kind of like, okay, he won.
Well, the distraction was Page distracting himself. At one point, he hit the Ego's edge, and Trick kicked out. And so Page starts screaming at the referee, like, why didn't you count 3? And so he goes to the corner, he starts pummeling Trick in the corner, and the ref's, counting 1, 2, 3, 4, and he pulls him off. And so Ethan starts yelling at the ref again, and then Ethan turns around, and Trick hits the knee out of nowhere and gets the pin. So, clearly they just signed Ethan Page. It's his first match. He's doing a job. They wanted some sort of finish that kind of felt like, flash pin out of nowhere. Guy was yelling, and he turned around and got hit. So it wasn't like a decisive, victory or anything like that where Trick hit move after move after move and pinned him. So
no, Ethan Page actually had most of the offense.
Yeah. So, but Trick won, and then Sexy Red hit the ring, danced with Trick, and the show ended. So that was that. And they did make a bunch of announcements for Tuesday. Besides Cody Rhodes being there, we've got Lexis King and Dante Chen, Singapore Kane match, Shawn Spears, Javon Evans, Michin versus Jada Parker, and the return of Wendy Chu. So that is the lineup for Tuesday. And then for Raw tomorrow, it's Braun Breaker, Ilya Dragunov, which should be great. Sami Zayn and Otis, which also should be good. And Lyra versus Io Sky, which is a rematch of the Queen of the Ring tournament where Lyra beat her. So that's tomorrow's Raw show. Did you watch Dominion?
I watched all of Dominion, yeah.
Well, let's go through the Dominion review and then talk about how this leads to Forbidden Door and also the G1.
There's actually a lot. And also, there's a big show in Sapporo next Sunday, which I guess maybe some of the stuff comes out of this. So, but I probably should start with the G1 because that's actually the biggest news of all. All right, well, there's actually a lot of news that came out of the show. So the two things for Forbidden Door, number one is Jon Moxley and Tetsuya Naito is going to be the IWGP title match, and they shot an angle on the show here for that one. And then the other one is Jeff Cobb will be defending the TV title in an open challenge, or he's going to make an open challenge. So he's basically said he would go to Dominion, to Forbidden Door, and face anyone who wants a shot can get the shot. So they shot angle. So they're doing the show in Sapporo this week. So it's Show defending against El Desperado, who won the Super Junior tournament. First time in his career he won it, and it was actually very emotional, great match. Because he's been in the finals in the past. He's been a top guy for years and years and years. He has awesome matches. He's never won this tournament, so he finally won. And he challenged Show for the championship next Sunday. And in the discussion, he basically said he wanted a cage match because Show said, I don't need any help with interference. It's okay, let's have a cage match. So cage matches in New Japan are very rare. They only happened a handful of times in history. I don't know. I mean, like, when they did this whole thing of, because it's a cage, none of the members of the House of Torture can interfere. And I just kept thinking, this sounds like the U.S., which means that everyone's going to interfere. Every single one of those guys is going to interfere. And but we'll see. Maybe they'll actually do a cage match where nobody interferes, which is funny. I mean, it was funny because somebody had sent me this clip. It was Al Snow, and he's talking about what there was a cage match. I think it was an AEW. What was the last AEW cage match?
Well, the Edge one.
It was the Edge match, yeah. And he's trying to explain that, so his point was that when cage matches were the original idea of a cage match was to climb out of the cage and win, not to jump off the cage and break your leg. It was basically his thing. And like, my thing was no, the original idea of a cage match was to have no interference, and you can't run away, and you get beat. The heel, usually, sometimes the babyface, gets beat in the middle of the ring without running away and climbing out. Climbing out was a way that, when that was instituted, was a way so the heel, who usually lost, didn't have to do a pinfall job. The babyface can just, with Bruno, Bruno, it was actually the climbing out of the cage was invented because the Sheik wouldn't do a job. He wouldn't do a job for Blassie in Los Angeles. He wouldn't do a job for Bruno in Boston. So they created these rules of climbing out of the cage. And later, Bruno didn't like the climbing out of the cage, so he came up with the walking out. He would just destroy the guy, beat the guy, leave him for dead, walk out the door. It was a decisive win in a Bruno cage match, even though they didn't do pins. So, but originally, long before the Sheik came along, cage matches had been around, and the idea was the cage match prevents the heel from running away and prevents people from helping the heel. No outside interference. So anyway, that's that. So anyway, they've got that cage match. They're going to have Shingo Takagi and Hanari in a rematch. They did a double knockout match today, and incredible. It's a Shingo Takagi and Hanari match. They just beat the hell out of each other. It's so brutal. I'll talk about that in a second. But David Finlay against Sonata for the global title, which had nothing to do with today's show because neither of those guys were even on the show. Junior heavyweight tag title, Clark Connors and Drilla Maloney defending against Kosei Fujita and Robbie Eagles. Trios championship, so the Trios title changed hands today. They're doing the rematch next week. New champions, Yota Tsuji, Bushi, and Hiromu Takahashi defending against former champions Hiroshi Tanahashi, Toriano, and Oleg Boltin. And then Naito and Titan against Yuya Uemura and Taka Michinoku, Shota Umino and Yoshihashi and Hiroki Goto against Dick Togo, Yujiro Takahashi, and Evil, Taichi and Doki against Ren Narita and Yoshinobu Kanemaru, and Katsuya Murashima, Shomakato, Tomoaki Hanma, Tomohiro Ishii, Satoshi Kojima against Jeff Cobb, TJP, Great Khan, Callum Newman, and Francisco Akira. So Francisco Akira is up. I guess he's going to be back next week. I thought the knee injury was worse than that. So that's the main stuff. So G1 this year, it's going to be 20 guys in G1. They will be announcing 18 of the guys, I believe, in a week. And then they're going to have a tournament before the G1 in early July for the tournament will have two winners, and the two winners, one will go to A block and one will go to B block, and they will be the final members of the G1. So it's going to be A block, B block, 10 people, which means 9 matches guaranteed for everyone, as opposed to last year where they did 5. So it's back to the old days. Now the way they're doing the finals is different as well, but they're also going back 30-minute time limit instead of 20. So the experiment of last year actually I think they've done 2 years, but the 4 blocks of 6 is out the window, and they're going back to the other way, which was more popular the other way, and the 30-minute time limit. I didn't mind the 20-minute time limit because you could do more draws with a 20-minute time limit, and you can tease that draw. At the 15-minute mark, you're teasing a draw in a 20-minute time limit match. In a 30-minute time limit, you got to go 25 minutes before you're teasing a draw. So, it's like, I know there's, the thing is a match, especially with G1 and the level of guys there's obviously going to be a lot more drama in your matches that go 23 minutes, and you couldn't do that in last year's G1. So that's the reason that they're going back to the old way of doing it. Now, instead of the way they're going to do the finals is it's going to be the top 3 as opposed to the top 2 or winner. Actually with the 2 blocks, it was the winner versus winner. The A block winner faces the B block winner. This one, it will be the top 3 in A block, and the top 3 in B block will go to the playoffs. There will be a match where this would be the 15th, I believe, but it's the third from the last match, third from the last show. And it'll be number 2 and number 3 in A, and number 2 and number 3 in B. The winner faces number 1 the next day. The winner of that match goes to the final. So that's how they're going to do it. And G1, you get it's going to be more. I'm going to say more matches, but it's going to be more matches per person. The guys are going to do. It's tougher on the guys. The one thing with those 5-match G1s, and maybe the guys in the finals might do 7 matches, is they were not having as many guys totally beat up as they were the old way. Because one of the problems with the old way of G1, it's like you get the best matches of the year all condensed in that 1-month period. So many of the best matches. But then, you were going through August and September, and these guys were so beat up that, you really weren't getting a lot of great matches. They were trying to heal up, and a lot of them got hurt because they did so many hard singles in such a short period of time. And, we're going to have that again. A lot of hard singles matches in a short period of time. So that's what's going on there. So you want me to talk about the show?
Yeah, let's hear
it. Did you watch it?
I have not seen anything yet.
Okay, very good show. Let me get to my notes here. So it opened with Tetsuya Naito and Callum Newman, and Tetsuya Naito won with 2 Destinos. Newman kicked out of the first one. And, nothing special in the match. Newman's very good, but there just wasn't, it was nothing special in the match. Just nothing really big. Then you had Robbie Eagles and Robbie Eagles and Kosei Fujita and Zack Sabre Jr. against Clark Connors, Joe Maloney, and L.J. Cleary, who was a wrestler from Pro Wrestling Noah. And it ended up with, Zach won with a Zach driver. And good wrestling match. I mean, frickin' Zach and Eagles and Fujita, they did this thing where they would do they would do 3 submissions on a guy, and then, like, you know how Zach does the every 6-second thing, where he changes submissions. All 3 would do. So, like, they would have 3 submissions on the guy, then they would all go almost like Ring Around the Rosie deal, and then they would go, like, let's say the guy has the head, then he would move to the arm, and then the guy with the arm would move to the leg, and they did this. It was really kind of a cool thing. And, Zack Sabre's fantastic, and it wasn't a long match. It was just a little under 10 minutes, and very entertaining. Everyone looked good, and Kosei Fujita is going to be a big, big star, I think, someday. Rob Eagles is a great, great worker, and Zack Sabre's one of the best that there is. So a lot of fun. Then we had Yuya Uemura against the Great Okan, and what happened there? Great Okan won the championship back with basically a tree slam combination of the claw at the same time. The Great Okan had attacked Yuya Uemura on a Friday appearance, and then I believe on Saturday he was in the hospital with an IV but came out to win the championship. So he won the King of Pro Wrestling championship in this match, and the rules were that you only got 2 rope breaks, and all striking was banned. So it was basically all submissions, all wrestling. Uemura got 2 submissions on, and Okan got to the ropes both times. So if he gotten one more submission, there was no way to break it. But then Okan came and won the title via pin. So that's what happened there. Then Jeff Cobb and Tomohiro Ishii, and Jeff Cobb won with Tour of the Islands. Fantastic match. It was funny because they only went 12 minutes, and the first 4 minutes was kind of like, it was fine. It was good, but it wasn't like it was fantastic or anything. And I was almost like, because I knew that they were only going, 12 minutes, and it's like, wow, for 12 minutes, it's I'm expecting a fantastic match. And then by about the 9-minute mark, it's like, man, this is a fantastic match. The selling by Ishii just out of this world, and the match was exactly what you would expect. 2 thick guys just pounding each other and doing everything that Ishii does in every match that always works, and the crowd going crazy. I think the crowd was probably hotter for this match than anything, and there was a spot where Cobb throws Ishii in the air, and Ishii comes in and hits this Hurricane Rana, which wasn't the most beautiful Hurricane Rana I've ever seen, but it was effective, and it came out of nowhere, and nobody saw it coming, and was, like I said, very, very effective and everything like that. Then we had, they announced a whole bunch of shows, big shows for the rest of the year. Officially announced Wrestle Kingdom for January 4th, one night this year coming up. So that was pretty much it. They announced a couple shows in Osaka, including I believe it is November 17th will be Historic X Over, which is the combined show with Stardom. They did one before, and so this will be the second one. And then we had the 4-way tag for both the elimination match for the New Japan Strong and the IWGP Tag Title. So the IWGP champs are Chase Owens and Kenta. New Japan Strong champs are El Phantasmo and Hikuleo. And those two teams ended up being eliminated first. Shane Haste and Mikey Nichols used the Tank Buster on Hikuleo. So Hikuleo and Phantasmo are out. So they go like, well, we know we got new Strong champions. And then Goto pinned Chase Owens after Goto and Yoshihashi the Shoto. And so the first 11 minutes, were those teams. And then the last a little over 5 minutes was Goto and Yoshihashi and Haste and Nichols. That period, the first part was so-so, kind of even boring, really. I don't know, the crowd wasn't that into it. I mean, it wasn't like the wrestling wasn't good or crisp or anything. I mean, everything was fine, but it just didn't seem the crowd was into it that much. When it came down to the last two, it was pretty damn good. So, and then Super Tank Buster, clean in the middle. Shane Haste pinned Goto. So Haste and Nichols are both New Japan Strong and IWGP World Tag Team Champions, and they were really pushing. They were pushing the idea that Haste and Nichols were the greatest tag team in New Japan to have never won the IWGP Tag Team Championship, and now they have. So that was kind of like the story of the match. By the time it was over, I would say pretty good match. But the first half or first 2/3 were just so-so. Then Shingo Takagi for the Never Openweight Championship and Hanare, just an incredible match. I could see some people not liking the double knockout finish. It was just one of those things. They just beat the hell out of each other, like brutally. This just looked like it was just no fun in a lot of ways, but that's what these two guys do. So it was a 10-count double knockout. So if you go with the idea that you want to see a winner and a loser, you could be disappointed in the finish. If you go with the idea that it's very difficult to do a double knockout match and make it look believable, then probably you should give these guys a ton of credit because they did a fantastic job. When I saw that double knockout and the way it ended, it was kind of like, I kind of don't expect them both to be knocked out, but goddamn, they beat the hell out of each other enough to where it was very viable. There was one spot, the spot, and they do this in Japan all the time, where you kick the guy really hard in the mid to upper back, with great sound. The Japanese do it all the time. Hanare did this, right? Hanare kicks him, he goes for that kick in the high back. He nails him right in the back of the head. Oh my God. It was like, I thought it was like, this is like really bad. And Takagi for a second there was just like, oh God. But, and he still might be hurt. I don't know. He got up, did everything. But they were just killing each other. Just freaking killing each other. Lots of headbutts. These were working headbutts. I mean, I needed a lot of them because the gimmick is that they're both hard-headed. So it was almost this thing where headbutt, and then finally the story is Hanare's got the harder head, So Takagi it wasn't like they would do with the Terry Funk deal or the 80s deal where you headbutt a guy who's got the hard head and you go down and everything, the cartoon thing. This would be like, it took 6 or 7 of them before Takagi then starts kind of stumbling around. I mean, but man, these guys, this like just hard chops and hard elbows and hard kicks and headbutts, and the timing is just great on everything. And it was like 10 minutes in, it's kind of like you're going like, this is like a match of the year, like match of the year level. But they only went 14 minutes, not only because the brutality of it was 14 was plenty, but the double knockout, I don't think anyone's going to be voting for this for match of the year or anything like that because of the double knockout. But the double knockout to build the rematch for this week, it's almost like you watch this, and my thought was, of course you're going to do a rematch for the championship, I didn't expect it in 1 week because it's almost like they beat the hell out of each other so bad that it's like, oh, it should be like a month from now, not the next Sunday. But that's what they did. Jon Moxley and Evil for the IWGP Championship in the Lumberjack match. So the one thing, it was, all of the stuff that you see in Evil matches, but I thought this was much better because this match really told a story. The Lumberjacks didn't get involved that much early, and really, like, the babyface Lumberjacks didn't do a lot. There was one time Moxley's thrown out, and they're just, all of the House of Torture guys are just whipping him with a belt. Took a lot of belt shots, got in the ring, and then, of course, he came back, and he's whipping all those guys with the belts later. Then there was a spot where Dick Togo threw powder in Moxley's eyes, and you got all of the stuff with the ref bumps and the choking with a wire and, all of that stuff. And then, the babyface Lumberjacks, would get involved. But the stuff was like Evil would do moves, like the Anaconda Vice or the Nagata Lock in front of, like, Tenzan and Nagata. So he's like, he's using those guys, showing them no respect, using their moves. And then Moxley used their moves as a tribute. So you had all that. And then finally at the end, they start running wild. Nagata's doing the Nagata Lock in the ring. The referee's down. Tenzan does the Anaconda Vice. Makabe does the double clothesline. Tiger Mask does the tope. And it ends up with Moxley winning with Moxley brought out a barbed wire baseball bat after all of the interference, nailed everybody with it. Evil did a pen to the eye, but then tried to use the barbed wire baseball bat on Moxley. Moxley ducked the bat shot, hit a diamond cutter. Moxley got the bat, just nailed him with bat shot after bat shot, curb stomp, Death Rider on the barbed wire bat, 25 minutes, got the pin. I thought really good, for what it was. It's like, about the interference, but, it's like, it's almost like when you have all those guys out there, it's like the WrestleMania match with Roman Reigns and Cody, where all these guys are out there, they're interfering. It's not like the interference is as annoying as, like, interference that's detracting from the match or a shortcut. It's like, this match is designed for interference. You get all the interference. The babyface overcomes the interference and wins. The crowd's very into it. Before they do all the shenanigans, it was very hard-hitting, very solid wrestling, some of the best stuff that Evil's done as far as the wrestling stuff early. And then Moxley's out there, and he celebrates with Tenzan, Makabe, Tiger Mask, Shota Umino, and Yuji Nagata, and he challenged anyone to come out. Somebody come out and challenge for the title. Naito comes out, pretty big pop. They go in there and talk, and Naito basically says that, my fault is, it's my fault that this guy has the championship. They were trying to do kind of a deal where there's a controversy because the IWGP champion is not on tour with New Japan Pro Wrestling, where, the idea is that, the champion should be on all the house shows and everything like that, and Moxley's not on all the house shows. So Naito's kind of doing the deal where, it's my fault that we have this champion who's not on all the house shows, so it's my job to take it back at Forbidden Door, and Moxley agreed to do the match at Forbidden Door. And then main event, Best of Super Juniors final, Taiji Ishimori against El Desperado. Excellent match. Desperado won with 2 Pinche Locos, all the near falls. I don't think this match was as good as either semifinal last week, which would have been with Ishimori and Hiromu and I forgot Desperado and TJP. Those matches were great. This match was really, really good too, but I'd say a shade below it. Excellent 23-minute match. Just great wrestling across. the crowd very into Desperado, and he's an awesome worker. And essentially the show ends like that, with Desperado going back and forth with Show. Show comes out, and Desperado goes, we're going to have it in a cage, and Show starts doing the heel freak out of the cage match, but they announced it, so there you go.
All right, Omega and Okada.
Yeah, so today was the anniversary of two of the greatest matches of all time. 1995, June 9th, was Misawa and Kobashi against Akira Taue and Toshiaki Kawada. And there were many, many, many of those matches. But I think that it's pretty much the consensus that the June 9, 1995 match was the best of all of them, and maybe the best tag team match ever held. And I actually looked at Cage Match, and they had it, I think, as the sixth best match ever held, but the number one tag team match ever held. And I remember when Adam Page and Kenny Omega wrestled the Young Bucks on the AEW match, and they had an incredible tag team match. And I remember the two matches that I watched right after were this match and also a match with the Midnight Express and the Fantastics, just to see if that was the greatest tag team match of all time. And I put it this way, those matches were all great. I don't really want to say one's better than the other. They were on the same level. So they and that the Young Bucks, Omega and Page is in Cage Match the second best tag match of all time as far as their ratings. So but so I would say the greatest tag match of all time from a consensus standpoint. This would be the anniversary of that. And then Omega Okada, the 2 out of 3 fall match from Osaka from the Dominion in 2018. They also wrestled the Dominion in 2017, which was a hell of a match as well. And that's the best match I've ever seen. You could argue others, including other Omega Okada matches, but that match was incredible. So it is something that you could make a case that on June 9th, in different years, the greatest singles match and the greatest tag match both took place on that date. And nothing that I saw today is going to be on those lists. But not that Dominion didn't have some pretty damn good matches. But there's no match of the year winners on Dominion this year.
And Dana White and Howie Mandel.
Yeah, did you see the Dana White Howie Mandel thing a couple months a month or two back?
Was it a couple months ago?
Feels like about a couple months ago, yeah.
Feels like it was years ago.
No,
Dana walked off, stormed off.
Yeah, when he walked off. Yeah, it was a couple months ago. It was really strange. He comes in there and Howie Mandel just puts him over. Dana this, Dana that. Greatest promoter, whatever. All your critics, you made them all look like fools. Dana sits there and goes, "Thank you very much." And he goes, "I hate doing podcasts." And he walked off.
Yes.
And everyone was like, what a weird thing that was. And nobody really, after a week, news cycle, everyone kind of goes, that was really weird. What was going on with Dana? So I guess Dana was doing some appearance, and there were fans, and they're all chanting, "Fuck Howie Mandel, fuck Howie Mandel." And Dana really really likes Howie Mandel. So he broke kayfabe and said it was all a work. He said, he was doing a podcast in the studio with somebody else, and Howie Mandel comes up to him and does this idea of something to do to get attention. And so he said, "Sure, I'll do it." And the idea was he was supposed to kayfabe it, or else, that's Howie Mandel's gimmick, I guess, trying to be Andy Kaufman, work everybody with this thing, for no specific reason other than to do it. And Dana was fine because Howie Mandel was super nice to him and all that. But he said that he didn't like the idea that people who were fans of his thought that there's this rivalry and feud and that he hates Howie Mandel. So he just wanted to say that, it was all a work, and Howie Mandel asked him to do it, and he thinks Howie Mandel's great. So that's the story.
All right, a couple of notes. We don't have time for full reviews, but from SmackDown and Collision this week, they did a Jade and Bianca versus Candice and Indy match, and of course, Jade and Bianca won. But then Alba Fire, Isla Dawn, Shayna, and Zoe all hit the ring to attack Jade and Bianca, and they beat them down. And then Jade and Bianca made their own comeback and destroyed everybody.
Well, they're the stars.
Well, I know.
Everybody else is bit players to make them look good. They're
so why should I care about this three-way coming up?
I'm not saying you should. The only thing is it's an appearance by Bianca, and they're the Road Warriors. That's the deal is not that you expect them to lose. The idea is they're just going to run over everybody, and that's what's going to get them. Especially with Jade, because I don't think they want Jade to sell a whole hell of a lot, and they have that good look and everything like that. So but they'll have I think that they'll probably have times where they sell, but for the most part, the idea is making them out to be a dominant championship team.
Well, that sets up a three-way coming up for the tag team titles.
Yep. Yeah.
We had Johnny Gargano and Grayson Waller, which...
Now, this is the one. They're setting up a tag title match, but Grayson Waller won.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've done this in the past where, you do two singles matches and each guy wins one from each team.
It looks like Paul Levesque's idea is you split them rather than have the challengers win both. To me, I just assume, what's the point of splitting them? You know what I mean? It's like if you're building up challengers and the tag team champions aren't losing as a tag team, build up the challengers. Split them. It's like it's like, why split them? It's like you don't accomplish anything splitting them other than people saving face.
We had AJ showing up, and Cody had been waiting for him, and so they had all the security out there to break them all up, and ends up with AJ doing a cheap shot on Cody. And so Cody says, well, you want a WWE title match? You want a shot at Clash of the Castle? You got it, but it will not be a regular match. It will be an I Quit match. So it is Cody versus AJ, I Quit match, Clash of the Castle for the title.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's a different match. They don't have to do the same type of matches before. I Quit match could either be, sometimes it works against you, and sometimes more than not, because what they do is they bring the mic there. It's like, no, and all that. Usually, the I Quit match doesn't help the match the way it's done in WWE, but hopefully this will be different. Because they had an awesome match, their first match.
So it looked like they might be building up a three-way feud with L.A. Carmelo and Logan Paul, but they did L.A. Knight and Carmelo.
I think it's going to be a singles match with Logan Paul and L.A. because Carmelo... it's funny, Carmelo, the first draft choice and everything, and now all he does is get beat.
Well, they did L.A. Knight and Carmelo Hayes, and L.A. Knight beat him. So, yes, It appears to be L.A. versus Logan Paul, and Logan Paul said actually was L.A. said, if Logan Paul doesn't come to SmackDown, I'm going to bring SmackDown to him. Logan Paul was doing a Tetris tournament, I believe.
Yes, he was.
Could not be there, so...
Yeah, because he was originally, last week on the show, they said he would be there this week, and then he wasn't.
They're teasing Tiffany and Nia as a team.
Yeah.
Tiffany and Nia Jax as a tag team.
Well, that's like the Piper Niven and Chelsea Green thing in a different, in a way.
Well, we had...
higher level.
We had Piper coming out after Bayley talked about Piper challenging for the title. And Piper got to cut a promo. Yep.
Yeah, she's a nice promo.
This was probably the best promo she's ever cut for WWE. And she just talked about the Mae Young Classic and how Bayley had seen her there, but she knew nothing about her. She'd been fighting since 2008, putting Scottish wrestling on the map, won titles in the UK and Japan.
Wrestling too. Yeah.
Before she ever came here, and she said, you might respect me, but that's not going to stop me from drilling you into the mat and taking your title. It's a very good promo, setting up that match.
Yeah, and it was interesting because Bayley even talked about how, we're going basically in front of her family and her friends in Scotland, and she goes I know because they did it with me. Like I've wrestled in front of my family and my friends. And I remember that first time in San Jose, and I how they beat her, and she just goes, yeah, and I let everyone down and all that. So I don't think that she'll ever exactly forget that. I don't know that I will either, because it was like so stupid. But that was a different regime. But boy, was that stupid.
We had Naomi cutting a promo on Chelsea to set up a match for next week, and then the main event was Kevin Owens, Street Profits versus the Bloodline, which went to a DQ when Solo used a chair shot. And then everybody's brawling after the match, and Solo ends up giving Dawkins the thumb, and they give Montez the Roman Reigns spear, and then Kevin tries to make the save. He gets double-teamed, and they gave him the Shield powerbomb through the announce table. So heat angle to end the show and set up whatever they're going to be doing at the pay-per-view. But we now have...
I don't know that they're doing... I don't know. I guess they could add like a 6-man to the pay-per-view, but it would just be a rematch of this. But the big thing of that, to me, is just building up the return of Roman Reigns. I mean, it was really clear that these guys are running wild, and, Paul Heyman, they're doing this whole thing of, why do they have the wise man when they don't even ask him for his advice? And it's very clear that they don't listen to him. They just bully him around, and the people chant, "We want Roman," at these guys. And Tongaloa has a new name. What's his new name now?
We've got Tama Tonga as the new right-hand man.
Right.
He was christened...
Which was the insult of Jey Uso.
Yep, he was christened the new right-hand man. And then Tongaloa also got inducted into the Bloodline at the beginning of the show. And I just called him the infamous...
The infamous Tongaloa.
Yes.
The infamous, like he's infamous in some way.
He's infamous.
But they didn't tell us like exactly what for. Yeah, I think that's the idea that he's so vicious that they never would let him in the company, even though he actually was in the company.
I was going to say, they're doing this thing about how they call them savages. Say they work like untrained savages. I'm like, what are these savages got trained by you? So...
Well, frickin' Tama Tonga is one of the best guys they got.
He's great.
Been working great.
Yes,
he's been working frickin' great. Everyone's been surprised at how good he was. I mean, I think they knew he was good, but he's really turned it on. One of the things with the guys when they come from Japan is, they're just used to a faster style, so they stand out more when they come in because they're working that, more relentless, more physical, more intense style, and that's what he's been doing. I don't know exactly what they're doing, but it looks like there's going to be this bloodline against Roman Reigns. So Roman Reigns is going to need partners. So I don't know if that's going to end up being the Usos or Jacob Fatu, because it's not like Roman Reigns is going to be going against these three guys on his own. At first he probably will, and then he's going to have to pick up some stuff. But it really looks to me like, and this is just my speculation from watching, is I think that Roman Reigns and Solo is probably a WrestleMania match. I don't see him doing it. They're not going to rush that match. I could see that because Roman, the WrestleMania main event's probably Cody and Rock. So you need something for Roman and Solo. It's very clear that Solo and Roman are headed for that's been clear for over a year, but it looks like this is the year they're going to do it.
So Collision at FTR versus Claudio and Wheeler Yuta, which went to a 20-minute time limit draw. Of course, the fans hated it, and so Dax grabbed the mic and he said 5 more minutes. So they brought up Brandon Cutler, who is now the lackey. I guess he's always been the lackey of the Young Bucks, but he said the match contract said 20 minutes, not 25, not 30. So 20 minutes, not happening. So Claudio gave him a giant swing, and then Yuta drop-kicked him, and then Claudio gave him a catapult into a shatter machine. They tore up the contract and vowed to run the match back again at some point down the road. Chris Statlander beat Robin Renegade, and then afterwards they cut a promo basically saying that she was going to enter into the Owen Hart Cup, and she was going to become the first woman to win the TBS and the World Women's title. Yeah,
so they're really making the Owen Hart tournament much bigger this year. I think it's going to be a higher caliber of people in it, but also, also again, like, the winners get the title shots at All In, so that makes it big too. But they're building it up before it starts with these people talking in their interviews like they're going to go in there, and obviously, I don't know when, because Forbidden Door, so it may not be this next pay-per-view, but obviously they're building up to a Willow Nightingale and Chris Statlander match. Hopefully not too long, because they just did the turn, and I hate when they do the turn and then they don't ever get around to doing the singles match until like so far later that you've already kind of forgotten about the turn. So hopefully that's like at least within the month, or 5 weeks, not like 4 months from now they wait it out.
So then Willow entered the Owen Hart Cup as well, so she has been added. We had Dustin beating Johnny TV, and then Dustin cut this great promo, building up the match coming up on Wednesday with Jack Perry. And that is also a match to determine who ends up in the ladder match at Forbidden Door for the vacant TNT title.
Yeah, they'll probably have a good match. I like this match. It's like I will say about this show that when when the show started and they ran down at the beginning of the show the lineup, it was not thrilling. It was like, whoa, this is one of those things, one of those lineups that may not do well on TV. I mean, you never know, because sometimes ratings fool you, but when I was looking at it, it's like, these aren't matches like I would go out of my way to see, because even like Orange Cassidy and Kyle O'Reilly's lost so many matches, and it's babyface, which, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but not like, I don't like that match, like mid-card, babyface who loses a lot against somewhat star babyface, but, a guy who's on TV every week and all that, like, didn't feel special, and that's the match that, you wait the 2 hours to see. It didn't feel promising to me. There's, with the AEW, I mean, if this contract comes in good, and obviously that's going to probably happen somewhat soon, I would expect, it doesn't alleviate, like, financially, it could, if it's the right number, financially it could alleviate all the financial, and I don't want to say there's financial problems, because they're very wealthy people, and it's not like they're, like they're going to go out of business or anything like that, but it could make the company profitable, for the next however many years of the contract, almost like a lock. That still doesn't alleviate the fact that, they don't need to draw big to make money, because the money's in the TV. But if you're not drawing big, you are not providing, the product that the masses want to see. And that, they may be a solid promotion and they may do good wrestling matches, but there's more to it. And the key is to get that popularity, back to where it was. And, like I said, like when I looked at this lineup, it's just like, man, on a Saturday night with all this, every Saturday night, man, there's a lot of sports competition. There's UFC this week. It was a fight night, but still, there's always, all the different sports. And it's like you need something really big to get people to watch in big numbers on a Saturday night, and Chris Statlander against Robin Renegade, and just the whole lineup of this one. It was, was it Tony Storm and Lady Frost? Wasn't getting, when I saw that lineup, it wasn't getting to me.
Well, Tony Storm beat Lady Frost, and then afterwards she announced that Mariah May is going to be in the Owen Hart tournament. So she has entered Mariah into a tournament where Mariah could win and then challenge her for her title.
Mm-hmm.
We had Samoa Joe and Hook and Shibata destroying the Premier Athletes, so they are going to be a 3-person team. Probably kill them next week. Daniel Garcia got a win over Tate Mayfair's.
Tate Mayfair's look, because I actually didn't get to see that match.
You didn't see this one? I mean, it was fine. It was just to get over Daniel Garcia. I mean, okay. They gave Tate very little.
He's worked in the UK, but I was just wondering how he was going to translate into here.
Yeah, he had a very, very brief heat and then got beat. So that was that. They announced Mercedes versus Zeuxis for the title on Wednesday, and they had a nice video package for this. So the key is she's Stephanie's partner in CMLL, so Mercedes is going to go through her first.
She is. It makes sense there. It's a challenge. It's going to be a challenge for Mercedes. So, she's one of the better CMLL women, but the quality of the CMLL women, aside from Stephanie Becerra and Tessa Blanchard, is not particularly high.
And then the main event was Orange Cassidy, Kyle O'Reilly, and they had a long match. And the story of this match is that Orange Cassidy has been challenged by Zack Sabre Jr. for Forbidden Door. And all of his friends have left him. Everybody wants to beat him up. And so, essentially, the story here was he faced a great submission wrestler, and he beat him. So, it was essentially the story that if he can beat Kyle O'Reilly, maybe he can beat Zack Sabre Jr. He did a lot of the Orange Cassidy stuff, but also a lot of good wrestling. One with the Orange Punch, 2 of them. And Kyle did an incredible sell job for the second Orange Punch. And so Orange pins him, and then Trent and Kyle Fletcher hit the ring, and they start beating him down, and then Kyle runs down to try to make the save. Kyle O'Reilly, of course. And he gets his ass kicked as well. And so then Chris Statlander gets in the ring, and she shakes Trent's hand, and then Willow's music hits. She runs down. So basically, they set up 2 matches here, and maybe down the road, Tony ever introduces those mixed tag titles. We get those belts. We got some mixed tags here as well.
But I wouldn't mind that. As far as like a match with Trent Barretta and Chris Statlander against Orange Cassidy and Willie Nightingale against a TV match, and it's a fine TV match. But I don't think we need any more championships.
Well, I think we're going to get them here at some point.
We need less championships, and I would say that goes for New Japan and WWE as well. And WWE might be introducing more championships too. So, and they just introduced the Speed title, so it'll never end. There's just going to be more and more and more. Pretty soon, like every match on every pay-per-view will be a championship match because that way they don't have to book too many personal angles. Just put belt at stake.
All right, on that note, we got to wrap it up for today. New Observer's up on the front page. New back issue as well. And Dave and Garrett were up this weekend, so you've got that to listen to. And then we're going to be back tomorrow after Raw. We'll talk the Raw show and all of the news there as well. So a lot of stuff. That's it, everybody. We'll talk to you again after a while.